Forget ABC, I'm AAC, all about Chardonnay. When it comes to dry wine, some of the most memorable experiences that I've had with a grape variety have been with Chardonnay or Riesling. Chardonnay is the second most widely planted grape variety all around the world. It's the most planted grape variety in France, most planted white grape variety in the USA, Australia as well. Its spiritual home is Burgundy, where some of the greatest examples are made. It's really a winemaker's grape. It's a relatively neutral grape variety. It's not an aromatic grape. It's almost like a blank canvas. As long as the conditions are right and the winemaker is skilled, they can craft beautiful examples. I got 6 from all around the world, including a white Burgundy. I'm going to see how they all stack up. These are all great. Unfortunately, I don't have any from Italy or South Africa. I think the greatest Italian Chardonnay I've ever had is Miani's Baracca Chardonnay, made in tiny quantities, just a couple barrels in good years. In South Africa, the Hamilton Russell always impresses me. Climate is a big factor into what makes a great Chardonnay. Cooler climate, you're going to have more acidity, you're going to have more citrus fruit flavors. As the wines start to get riper, they move into stone fruit like peaches, and then finally tropical flavors. That's with really warm climates. The clone also is a big part of it. Some clones give more yield, some clones give different fruit flavors, some clones perform well in different regions of the world. Site location matters, but as long as you have good grape material, I think Chardonnay is one of those grape varieties that's really crafted in the cellar. There are a lot of different techniques used to make great Chardonnay. One of them is whole bunch pressing. What happens when you make a white wine, you put the grapes through a destemmer crusher, it splits open the skins, then you put the juice right into a press. You press the juice off the skins and it goes straight into a fermentation tank. With high quality Chardonnay, you want to pick the bunches whole, so you have whole clusters, and then put them directly in the press. That protects the juice from any oxidation. Of course, this is going to cost more because it takes more labor to hand harvest and to carefully transport the grapes. Lees contact is also an important factor. When the yeast that converts the sugar into wines dies, it falls off into these lees. These are key in building body and flavor. Some Chardonnays are kept on the lees for a long time, especially in the barrel. They can build body and give a creamy texture. Of course, skilled winemakers know how long they have to keep the Chardonnay on the lees. And by the way, I'm not a winemaker. I spend a lot of time in the cellar. If you are a winemaker, you can expand on any of these ideas below. Next is malolactic fermentation. It's a process that occurs naturally. It's where malic acid, the kind of acidity you get in a tart green apple, naturally converts into lactic acid like you find in milk. It makes the wine a little bit softer. Some winemakers block it to keep the wines fresher. You have other skilled winemakers that might have a barrel where they block some of the malolactic fermentation and then let malolactic go in some other plots, and they blend everything together to get the perfect balance. When you have malolactic fermentation, you can get some creamy flavors, which can pair well from the toastiness you get in the barrel, which is the last factor. Great Chardonnays, with the exception of Chablis, are almost always barrel fermented. Barrel fermentation takes a lot more work. The oak flavors integrate a little bit better. These are techniques that were developed in Burgundy. I don't like oaky flavors in red wine, but I don't mind them and even sometimes seek them out in white wines. I've been tricked before in a lot of blind tastings with Chardonnays from around the world that have beat out white Burgundies. However, last year I was lucky enough with my collector group to do a big Chardonnay tasting. Most of it was aged white Burgundies, although there were some expensive New World Chardonnays. Almost all of the white Burgundy stood out. Some of them were magical. It made me realize, oh my gosh, this is why white Burgundy's white Burgundy. Enough yapping, I'm ready to taste some great wines. Tasting out of what's quickly becoming my favorite wine glass. This is the Riedel Pinot Noir Performance Glass, Burgundy shape. It works really well for white wines. It works well for a lot of different wines. Has these unique optical striations, increases surface area. Riedel claims it makes the wine taste better. I love it. It's an elegant big glass. I'll leave a link in the description box below. It's not cheap, but I love this glass. We have some bangers here. The price range here is around $50 to $140, so these are some pretty darn serious wines. I just Coravin them and had somebody mix them up for me. Wine 1 comes out of the gate swinging. When Chardonnay is perfectly balanced with the oak flavors, that's what you're gonna get. It's got like this white peach, yellow peach flavor. Stone fruit, just a touch of that toastiness. This feels like a cooler climate Chardonnay. This is a Chardonnay that's not big and in your face. It's more subtle. The length is extraordinary here. On the palate, you feel more acidity. It's got a little more citrus note, so to me feels more like a cool climate Chardonnay. It's not big and in your face. This is all about subtlety, the length, the acidity, the mineral flavors on the back end. There's this nice tingling acidity. That's a heck of a start. Wine 2 is definitely a little oakier. It smells a little bit bigger. You get that, like that pan gris, that like toasted bread flavor. Just a touch of coconut. Yellow peach mango. It's definitely a riper type of style, but it's not too obnoxious, too in your face. You get a little bit of creaminess. Definitely fuller in body. This is oaky, but the kind of oakiness I like in a white wine. It's not too big, it's not too obnoxious, and it has bright acidity. This is a wine where I think it's going to show its best in maybe 5 to 8 years as the oak kind of melts in. But I'm telling you, I don't mind it. It's not too in your face. It's not big and buttery. The acidity really cuts through. This is great. I think a lot of people are going to prefer 2 to 1 because of the bigness, the richness more in your face. I might prefer number 1 just a slightly more because it's a little more subtle, but number 2 is a great wine. Funny, we already see the big contrast in styles. 3? 3 is like in between 1 and 2. You do have a little bit of citrus fruit, but you also have fruits that are going more to yellow peach type flavors. There's a subtle creaminess to it. More like whipped cream, where number 2 was more milky. There's even a bit of perfume. This is long. This is the type of wine that it's more neutral. It's in your face, but you can tell the material, the grape material is great because the finish is really long, which is something I account for when I'm scoring wines high. This is the type of wine that's going to build layers as it ages in time. That's great. Let's move on to number 4. By the way, I forgot to mention, about a year and a half ago, I did a huge Chardonnay blind tasting video. I think there were about 10, 11 wines from all over the world. One of my first blind tasting videos that did really well. I'll pin it in the comments below. I know it is red wine season, but I'm getting a little red wined out, so I'm excited to do this video. I'm gonna maybe drink some of these wines later. Move on to number 4. 4 is the most explosive matchstick. It's really in your face. This, to me, I would not call White Burgundy at all in a blind tasting. I would say this is New World. So you're going to get some coconut, you're going to get some butter, but not too much. The matchstick, this really reminds me of an Australian Chardonnay. A good one at that. White peach. A little bit of like a persimmon flavor. Wow. You got to like the style, but the length here is extraordinary. It's very long. These are really close and the styles are completely different. This does really remind me of some of those high quality Australian Chardonnays I've had before. And Australia is doing an excellent job with making the wines a little bit leaner, a little more complex instead of big oaky monsters. Let's move on to number 5. The length on 4 is really impressive, really makes you think. Let's move on to 5 here. 5, man, these are all really different. This shows the diversity in Chardonnay. This has no matchstick type flavors like number 4 had. This has a dandelion component, white and yellow peaches, a clay. This kind of almost reminds me of some high-end cavas, what they taste like. I get a lot of clayey notes when I taste cava from Spain, sparkling wine from Spain, if you don't know. There's a little bit more earthiness here. More mineral driven. Scores aren't the most important thing because they're moving targets. Wines are always changing, especially great wines. They're always changing in a glass. You kind of have to know what kind of style, what kind of flavors you're looking to expect. This isn't as fruity as some of the other ones. I think this and number 3, maybe a little bit 1 were the most mineral driven, but still a hell of a wine. Let's go with number 6. 6 also has that toastiness I like. Has almost a little bit of a bottle patina. That's what happens when you start to taste wines. You start to kind of smell out, sniff this roundness. It's not quite mushroom or moldy basement, but you get some of this roundness. It's hard to explain unless you've tasted lots of aged wines. Not overly matured, but you definitely get it. White peach, like some dried pineapple type flavors. White pepper even. Oh. All these wines, I think I have them all from 2020, 2021 vintage, so I think they're all the current releases. But this has some development on it. Coming along really nice, great length. These are all neck and neck. These wines are all ridiculously close. I have a couple tied. This is the kind of tasting where you're not gonna go wrong with any of these wines. It's just you have to know your style, the type of wine that you want to have. Number 5 was the one with clay-like flavors. I felt like it's real mineral driven, didn't have as much fruit as some of the other ones. You kind of have to know what you're getting into. It's still a great wine. I gave it 92 plus points. This is a wine, for some reason, I'd like to have with some dried nuts. I think the flavors would complement each other really well. 92 plus points. Oh, wow. Clay. This makes complete sense. This is the Catena Zapata Adriana Vineyards White Stones Vino de Parcella Chardonnay 2020. Most expensive wine in a bunch, 136 bucks. This is a wine that's can aged. They also have the White Bones Chardonnay. I think I might prefer the White Bones slightly more than the White Stones. This is serious wine in its own right. These are some of the highest vineyards around Mendoza. In Argentina, there's great Malbec, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay coming out of that area. Most expensive wine in the bunch. Let's move on. I have 2 tied for 93 points. Like I said, so these are half a point different. Real subtle. That's the hard thing with great wines. We're talking about subtleties, and this might change if you line it up and taste them again. Unless wines really stick out, generally the scores might change around a little bit. Number 6 is the one that had a little bit of bottle age type flavor, had this little bottle patina shine on it. All of these were extremely long. I gave 6, 93 points. 93 points. This is Stoller Elsie Chardonnay from Willamette Valley in Oregon, 65 bucks. Elsie is the aunt to the Stoller nieces and nephews. This is their premium Chardonnay. I've been so impressed with Oregon Chardonnay. I've been tasting more of them this year. Pinot Noir is the star in the Willamette Valley, but man, Chardonnay, I think the plantings will keep continuing to increase because every Chardonnay I've tasted from Willamette has been impressive. That is no joke. I have it tied with number 2, which is a bigger, oakier style that, you know, a lot of people are gonna like. On the nose, that is. On the palate, the acidity really came through. This is actually really Puligny Montrachet-esque in terms of flavor profile. It really is. Let's take a look. 93 points. Let's take a look here. Kind of what I thought. This is the Erdevik Omnibus Lector Chardonnay from Fruška Gora in Serbia. Yes, this comes in at 40 bucks. I think Serbia, for some reason, has great terroir for Chardonnay. Even lesser known producers that I've tasted, the Chardonnay's fantastic. Funny story about this producer, this Chardonnay, after the first couple of vintages, was only about 15, 20 bucks. I was writing really heavily at the time, especially about the wines of that area, and I wrote a feature article on how I thought this was a great Chardonnay. Some of the locals were saying, yeah, I've tasted it. But just a few months later, it won a platinum medal at the Decanter World Wine Awards competition. That's when I think I started to realize who's giving the opinion really matters. A lot of people in that area were so happy for me showcasing some of their wines, saying I was doing such a good job, but obviously they didn't take me seriously until Decanter said it was a great Chardonnay. That started to increase demand. Then the price started rising. That's the thing. Anybody can taste wine, give a score, but the reason that popular critics, their words carry more weight, it's because they've built reputation. They have context. It's who they are. Regardless, this is a great Chardonnay. Really good. And I didn't taste the 2019 or 21, but the winemaker told me that 19 and 21 was better. And I was just at the estate a couple months ago having dinner, so go Serbia. Number 3 was perfumed. It was a little more neutral, didn't have as much fruit. It's the kind of wine I said, man, over time, you're gonna add layers to it. It's gonna build a ton of complexity. I thought that it might be the Catena Zapata because that's how those wines are when they're younger. I think this was great. I like the perfume notes, 93 plus points. I think it's an excellent wine. And this makes complete sense. This is the Racines Senorita Hills Cuvée Chardonnay 2020. This comes in at 60 bucks. Senorita Hills, located in Santa Barbara County, not too far north from Los Angeles, where the film Sideways took place. This is a collaboration between Etienne de Montigny, the famous producer in Burgundy, Pierre Peters of Champagne, and also the winemaker at Tyler, a fantastic producer in Santa Barbara County. This is the first time I'm tasting this wine. 60 bucks, 93 plus points. It's a wine that can age. I really want to taste their Pinot Noir now after tasting that. That was a heck of a wine. Let me get these all in the frame here. You can see all of them. We got work to do that better job with that. Okay, number one, it was subtle. I think it was more cool climate style, citrusy. I think it was absolutely gorgeous. I love it. I love it. I love it. The length was impressive. 94 points. 94 points. This is one of the greatest cooperatives in France, maybe the world. This is the La Chablisienne. This is the Chablis Premier Cru Vaulorent. 2020. This comes in at 69 bucks. Cool climate, just like I nailed it. I thought that was an extraordinary wine. Chablis is the northernmost stretches of Burgundy. It's actually closer to Sancerre and Champagne than it is Burgundy. There are 7 Grand Crus, 40 Premier Crus. This is a Premier Cru. This is one of their more pricier Premier Cru wines. I think it's just an outstanding wine. Outstanding. Okay, number 4, Matchstick. That's the flavors I picked up. It was long, it was big, but yet the acidity took over. Granted, I knew what these wines were. I just Coravin them and had somebody mix them up for me, like always. But you have to know your style. Some people don't like this style. It wasn't about flavor, it was about length. It was a heck of a wine. And look what we got here. We have the Shaw and Smith M3 Chardonnay from Adelaide Hills. I gave it 94 plus points. This comes in at 43 bucks. I think it's it's one of the more affordable wines in the bunch. Adelaide Hills, a little higher elevation north of Adelaide. Martin Shaw, Michael Hill Smith, who's an MW, is at the helm here. They also do the wines at Toll Puddle in Tasmania, I believe. This is a heck of a wine. I think it was in one of the top 10 lists of Decanter, maybe last year or something like that. I can see why. They do beautiful stuff. So tell me, what do you think makes great Chardonnay? Do you have any favorite regions for Chardonnay? Any favorite producers? I'd love to hear. Drop it in the comments below. Wowzers!